if you're a life insurance company, which of these two people do you insure? Hopefully your mind went to the young, healthy female, but why is that? Well, if you're a life insurance company, your first question is which of these two people poses the smallest risk to me? And the answer to that question really hinges on which of these two people is ultimately the healthiest. And this, in a nutshell, is the process of underwriting, and it's explained in a 2024 article by Kravenchko. The insurance company receives an application from someone who would like insurance, and then they conduct a bunch of physicals and lab tests and take in data about a person's medical and family history, and all this information is used by an actuary to make a decision about whether or not this person should receive insurance. And it's subject to a lot of human errors and biases and all sorts of things that go into that. And so increasingly, this process is being done by artificial intelligence technology, and this is explained in a 2022 article by Santake. The application is received in the same way, and there are still physicals and lab tests, but then the data is found by AI, which is diving through people's social media and looking online to get all sorts of information about a person, and then plugging it into a model which is evolving and changing over time based off of outcomes from other potential applicants. And then a risk score is computed, and someone's overall level of insurability is computed, and a decision is made automatically. And as a future actuary, this technology and the potential efficiency that it offers gets me really excited. But there's always a but. The use of artificial intelligence in insurance underwriting offers substantial promise, but it also contains serious risk in terms of algorithmic bias. Thus, it is critical that flexible oversight mechanisms be swiftly implemented. So let's return to our question of which person should we insure. But this time, let's use a different example. In this case, it's not so clear which person meets our standard of healthier, but 9 times out of 10, an insurance algorithm is going to make this choice. Why is that the case? Well, we return to our two-step process of before. We're looking at which person is least risky, and to answer that question, we're looking at which of these two people is the healthiest. But now our AI algorithm has included a third variable, which is which of these two people has the highest credit score. Why is that variable being included? Well, this is explained in a 2021 paper by Falabi and Duffy, and it's called proxy discrimination. The model isn't overtly looking for people who are black and saying they can't be insured because the model knows that that's illegal. But what it is doing is looking for any sort of association between any data point it can find. And so if it finds a relationship between, for example, credit score and mortality, that relationship is going to be included in the model. Whether or not that relationship is one that's causative in nature, it's still included, and it still may disproportionately impact underrepresented groups. It's not the goal, but it is the outcome. So maybe you're asking the question, well, why not just examine the model for discriminatory impact and take out the problematic variables? If only it were that simple. With traditional underwriting, we have a bunch of variables that come in a 1 + 2 + 3 equation that spits out an output. You could just take something out. But it doesn't work that way with AI models, as is explained by Falabi and Duffy. These systems are opaque because they process high volumes of data and infer relationships between data points that surpass that which a human could reasonably compute within a similar time constraint. And so essentially what's happening is these models are so dense and so complicated that identifying what's causing what isn't something that a human being can reasonably undertake. And a 2024 paper by Hodge explains that this might not always be even discriminatory or foul in nature. Maybe an insurance company is concerned about how climate change is impacting how they might be protecting and providing flood insurance. But if they're using old climate data, it's not going to be relevant. And of course, this is a simple problem to extract and pull out under a traditional underwriting structure, but it's not so simple and straightforward when you can't figure out what's going on because the algorithm is so dense. So should we just give up and not use AI in underwriting? I don't think we should, because I believe that the efficiency gain is so substantial that we need to figure out how to make it work. And my evidence for this is a 2020 study by Meyer and colleagues, who took a look at a work that's being done at MassMutual, which is a large insurance company. And so at MassMutual, they took a lot of their historical data from applicants starting from 1999 and looked at when they were living and when they were dying and what was going well and not so well with them. And they took this data and in 2016 began building a model that was used artificial intelligence and started piloting this technology. And in 2019, they rolled out their full model, which created a risk score and used this to make decisions about whether clients should be insured or not. And they used this for 250,000 different applicants, and the results were pretty stark. Right away, they found a 20% decrease in time to policy for their applicants, for the healthiest groups, and they also saved millions of dollars as a company. And so the efficiency gains and the potential savings are so significant that I believe we need to figure out how we can make this work. And so the question is, well, what does that look like? So first, let's take a look at what the insurance regulatory structure looks like in the United States. At the top is the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, And what they're doing is essentially providing some sort of loose, kind of unstructured guidelines to state regulatory agencies, which are making the bulk of decisions about what individual insurance companies within states can do. And this is a good framework, generally speaking, because artificial intelligence is rapidly changing and rapidly evolving, and so it's important that states have some measure of flexibility. At the same time, it's also important that the NAIC provides some guidance to states about what they can and should be telling insurance companies to do to make sure that AI is not disproportionately affecting groups. And so the study by Falabi and Duffy proposes some strategies for how to do this. And this begins with a front-end certification process. Before a model can be used, some sort of third party needs to come in and get involved and take a look at whether the model has discriminatory pieces within it. And then after that initial front-end certification is an annual independent audit. Again, a third party is coming in and looking at the model and seeing, are the outcomes that we expect to see, or is something else happening? Are all the groups being affected fairly? And what you'll notice about both of these pieces is that there's a critical factor of interpretability. We can't just go in and audit a model that we can't understand if the pieces are too confusing. And so as the insurance companies are building these models, the piece that the NAIC really needs to focus on, and the piece that the states need to be critical about providing more strict guidelines to insurance companies on, is that the models can actually be interpreted. Because when you can interpret and understand the models, then it's okay to go in and figure out what the discriminatory factors are. And so that's the piece of the puzzle that we're missing. When we have models that we can interpret, we can gain the efficiency that we seek without the discriminatory outcomes that we try to avoid.